So like and subscribe if you want to. Paul George was on the All the Smoke podcast. He has quite a few quotables. He says that they never worked on adjustments. They never worked on what they had to do differently. And he implies that the Clippers just had this idea of, well, we're so talented, we're going to figure it out, even if the same thing keeps happening each time. And everyone deserves blame for that. But specifically about Doc, I mean, the one thing we can constantly look at is the Montrez minutes, where with Montrez, they were bad against Denver. With Zubac, they were way better against the Nuggets. I mean, we saw how much trouble Montrez had guarding Jokic, and when they were double-teaming on the short roll and giving Jokic all the time in the world to just make a pass to whoever. I think that's the sort of thing that Paul George is implying. He also said that they did not practice the entire year, and I mean, that's not the first time we've heard that about Doc Rivers. We heard that from J.J. Redick, where he said that the Clippers didn't practice for his 4 years being there. And PG also said that he thought the way that Doc was using him, where it was a whole lot of pin-down plays comparing himself to J.J. Redick or Ray Allen. And he can do that sort of stuff, but he wants more ISOs, pick and rolls, post-ups, that sort of thing. So what should we take from all this? I mean, for one, yeah, I don't consider Doc Rivers to be one of the best coaches in the league. I consider him to be one of the better ones, sure. I think he's better than Brett Brown for Philly, but you do start to fear with a team like the Sixers, maybe they should practice a few times, and maybe that could lead to a lack of continuity between the players or something. And you could argue that a team like Philly perhaps needs that more than a lot of teams, given how awkward we've seen their offense at times. As for the Clippers' sake, well, according to Paul George, then going to Ty Lue should fix a lot of these things. I mean, I've tried to find things on how often Ty Lue practices and that sort of thing. Not that practicing more is inherently the fix to chemistry issues, but maybe doing it more than never could be a good move. Ty Lue, of course, has the famous moment of yelling at LeBron at halftime of Game 7 of the finals against the Warriors. And perhaps the Clippers need that sort of dude. Not to say that Doc Rivers would never do that, but maybe Ty Lue could just go an extra step than Doc would in that sort of thing. Because PG, I do think the players are partly to blame. Of course they are. Everyone is partly to blame when a disappointment happens, right? But PG does kind of imply that with Doc Rivers, the Clippers' lackadaisical, we're going to figure it out, we'll be fine mentality was sort of amplified by Doc, and maybe Ty Lue would be the guy who, after they lose a Game 5 to the Nuggets when they're up 3-1, now it's 3-2, maybe Ty Lue will just be a little bit more like, okay, we need to get right at this moment rather than, what ended up happening. Now, at the same time, would Ty Lue recognize that they're way better with Zubac as opposed to Montrez against the Nuggets? We'd have to see. Would he recognize that double teaming and leaving Jokic open on the short roll is definitely not working? I would hope so. Would he find more creative ways to get the Clippers' offense moving and that sort of stuff? We'll have to see. I mean, the one play that I always remember from Ty Lue's offense, given that so much of it was give the ball to LeBron, which is fine. That's always the play when LeBron's on your team. But it was this off-ball screen that he would run with Kevin Love and a lot of time like Kyle Korver, where one of them would usually end up being wide open in the corner, or it would be Kevin Love cutting to the basket. And it did generate a lot of good looks for them. I think you can run a pretty similar thing with Ibaka and take your pick of the perimeter player, really. I mean, I guess among all the guys the Clippers have now, funny enough, Shamet would have been perfect for that, but they basically chose Luke Kennard over Shamet. So maybe Luke Kennard would be that guy. I mean, if somebody's going to be the spot-up shooter on this team, it's probably him. You could try it with Lou Will. It's just, I feel like Lou mainly wants to run pick and roll, and same thing with Kawhi and PG. So we'll see if Ty Lue's X's and O's are going to be better than Doc's. But now, I mentioned Lou Williams a second ago, and to go back to the ideas of the Clippers and the stuff about the role players not liking the preferential treatment of Kawhi and PG, and the PG playoff success stuff. You can find all this on Twitter or whatever. As far as how much of it is true, I mean, it's impossible to know unless you're really in there. I don't think the players hate each other or anything, but I'm going to assume that there's some truth to this, and maybe it'll boil over into this season in some way. Maybe it'll be totally fine. You never really know with that until it's happening. But again, according to Paul George, Doc Rivers may have just been the main problem, and now that Ty Lue's there, maybe everything's going to get fixed. And we have heard how players do like Ty Lue. Not that we haven't heard players disliking Doc, but, well, we kind of just did with PG. So, I don't know. We'll see with all that stuff. I guess the last thing to think about is, what else could the Clippers do this year? Well, they acquired Luke Kennard. Could he be a trade asset if they need to go down that route? I think so. They've still got Zubats. Those two combined for about $12 million, which means you might be able to get up to about a $15 or $16 million player from another team if you include a smaller contract in there, because they give you that 125%. You don't have to match salary exactly. So that could be something. Could we see Lou Will on the way out? He does have an expiring, which teams could be cool with, and Lou Will can still help a team, but we've seen him be bad in the playoffs enough times to where maybe the Clippers wouldn't want to hang on to him. I don't know. It's, like, have we seen a team just with as much desperation to keep their two stars as the Clippers? So you could just kind of convince me of a lot of things with this team. I mean, an interesting thing is they do have these 3 Detroit second-rounders in 2024, 25, and 26, which maybe they'd want to hang on to as some sort of an insurance in case their stars leave, because those could be really good second-round picks. They could effectively be first-round picks. They could be like the 30-somethingth picks. I mean, we'll have to see how the Pistons look 4 years from now, but the point being is you could put those in moves and they could be something for you. There was even a report that said the Clippers have some special move up their sleeve or whatever, according to NBA executives around the NBA. You could probably find it on Twitter now. And the only way I could think of something like that would be Lou Will's expiring, Luke Kennard, Zubats, like all those 3 together with the Pistons second-rounders. I don't know if you're going to get something special in return for all that, but you could get something pretty good. Could they steal Buddy Hield from Sacramento for that sort of an offer? I don't know, man, but you have to assume the Clippers, they're still going to make moves. They're not just going to stare at this team the whole regular season and be like, yep, we're good with this, because, again, the Kawhi PG thing. Anyway, that's it for me. As far as the Paul George, Doc Rivers stuff, hey, you know, maybe PG's right. Maybe Doc Rivers was the real problem the whole time. You get a new coach in there, and suddenly things are all awesome.